Today we are going to be doing the cardiorespiratory fitness test on the cycle ergometer. So first, to prepare, I would explain the purpose of this test to the athlete. So the purpose is to predict cardiorespiratory fitness, to customize design of exercise prescriptions, to evaluate the effectiveness of exercise program, and to monitor heart rate and blood pressure responses. Some risks involved with exercise are muscular fatigue and high blood pressure. I would want to ask the subject if they have ever been tested before, if they are on any medications or drugs, if they have any musculoskeletal limitations or recent injuries, if they have a present physical condition like a cold or any infection, and the time of the last meal or snack. So then I would explain the client their responsibilities. So they would need to ride at 50 revs per minute. I would explain the RPE chart to them, and they would need to give me a rating when asked. They would keep going until about 75 to 85% of the heart rate max. And the benefits to be expected is the cycle ergometer is portable and less expensive. Upper body movement is minimal, and it's easier to measure exercise heart rate and blood pressure. So when preparing for the test, I would make sure I have my equipment ready and organized. So the equipment I would need for this test are scale, stadiometer for the height, cycle ergometer, stethoscope and blood pressure cuff, heart rate monitor, metronome, stopwatch, and my data sheet. For this client, when doing the heart rate max formula, 208 minus 0.7 times the age, 85% would be 164 beats per minute. So explanation of the test procedure. I'll explain the test only takes client just beyond 75% of predicted maximum heart rate. In this case, it's 85%. I'm going to stop the test if the client feels faint, dizzy, or short of breath, and they can stop whenever if they don't feel right. And the workload is going to continue to increase throughout the test. So when positioning the subject on the bike, it's important to make sure that the knee is bent from 5 to 15 degrees when the leg is extended. So I would come over here and check. Looks good. So for a warm-up, we'd do about 50 revs per minute at a resistance of 0.0 to 0.5 kilograms for 5 minutes. So when setting the initial work rate, it's based on body weight and activity level. So in this case, we'll do protocol A with an initial work rate of 0.5 kilograms. I will record the heart rate during the final 30 seconds of each minute. And I'll increase the workload correctly based on the heart rate, and if the heart rate varies more than 6 beats per minute within the last minute of stage, that would indicate a non-steady state. In this case, I'll have to keep the work rate the same for an additional minute. I'm going to take blood pressure starting at 2 minutes into every stage, and the RPE will be measured every 3rd minute or the final minute of each stage. The goal is to stay in steady state, and steady state exercise is activity that achieves a balance between the energy required by working muscles and the rate of oxygen and delivery for aerobic ATP production. The number of stages is going to depend if the client is in steady state, and it's going to continue until the test termination criteria is met. And the test termination criteria is if the subject exceeds 85% of the age predicted heart rate max or cannot maintain 50 revs per minute. The client can stop the test at any time and for any reason, but especially if they experience any chest pain, shortness of breath, dizziness, or nausea. After the test, I'm going to have the client cool down at 0.5 kilograms resistance at 50 revs per minute. I'm going to record heart rate, blood pressure, and RPE every 2 minutes, and I will continue the cool down for 4 minutes or until the subject's heart rate is less than 120 minutes. And then once I get all the information for every stage, I can plug in the info at exrx.net, and I can find the VO2 max and compare it to the age and sex norms. The purpose of the skin folds test is to measure body fat percentage. Calipers are used to measure the thickness of the skin at a range of sites around the body. The right side is usually only measured for consistency. I'm going to pinch the skin at the appropriate site to raise a double layer of skin and the underlying adipose tissue, but not the muscle. The calipers are then applied 1 centimeter below and at right angles to the pinch in a reading in millimeters, taken 2 seconds later. So I will be doing 5 different site locations. First is the abdominal, so it's a vertical skin fold 2 centimeters to the left and 1 centimeter above the umbilicus. Next is the triceps. I'll have the subject stand facing away from me with the right arm hanging straight down. I'm going to pinch a site 1 centimeter above the midpoint between the shoulder and the tip of the elbow on the posterior aspect of the triceps. Next is the chest. So for females, I'll do a diagonal fold as high as possible on the anterior axillary fold. For the superiliac, I'm going to grasp the skin fold diagonally just above the iliac crest at the level of the anterior axillary line. For the thigh, I'm going to have the subject stand with all weight on left leg and slight bend in the knee and the right leg. So I'm going to do a vertical fold on the anterior aspect of the thigh, 1 centimeter above the halfway point between the inguinal crease and the proximal border of the patella. Here, back up a little bit, yeah. So after all these measurements are taken, I'm going to take the mean of two measurements. If the two measurements are differ greatly, then a third should be done and the median value should be taken. Then I can enter this data into the exrx.net website and see what the client's norms are based on the client's age, sex, height, and weight. The circumference of weight divided by circumference of hips is the waist to hip ratio, which is a quick measure of fat distribution that may help indicate a person's overall health. People who carry more weight around their middle than their hips may be at a higher risk of developing certain health conditions. For the waist, I'm going to wrap tape around the anterior side, placing the tape at the narrowest circumference between the umbilicus and the lowest rib. I'll confirm the tape is parallel to the ground all around the subject and have the subject relax. Relax. For the hips, I will wrap the tape measure around from the lateral side, placing the tape at the largest circumference. I will record the measurement to the nearest millimeter. I will take 3 trials and take the average. The trials should be within 0.5 centimeters of each other. Then I will divide average and compare this number to the norms and see what risk level they are at for their sex and age. The push-up test evaluates upper body muscular endurance. You're going to do as many push-ups as possible with the proper position. For a woman, the proper position is the legs are held together, lower leg is in contact with the floor with the ankles plantar flexed, back is straight, head is up, and hands are shoulder width apart. The lower body, you're going to lower your body until the chin touches the mat. Your stomach should not touch the mat at any time. You're going to keep going until you're no longer able to maintain straight back or complete any more push-ups. Then I will take how many they are able to do and compare it to the norms chart. The forearm plank test is another test to determine muscular endurance. The subject assumes the forearm plank position with the elbow in contact with the ground such that the humerus forms a perpendicular line to the horizontal plane directly beneath the shoulders. The forearms are in neutral position and hands are directly in front of the elbows. Subject assumes a rigid anatomical body position so that only the forearms and toes support the body. The position is characterized by a phalangeal extension, neutral ankle position, knee and hip extension, and neutral spine position. The subject is instructed to statically hold this position as long as possible, and verbal cues are provided briefly to promote form adherence. When the subject assumes the proper position, the investigator starts the stopwatch. The test is terminated when the subject fatigues or voluntarily stops the test. The subject fails to maintain proper position, the subject reports feeling ill effects or pain, or the investigator notices signs indicating ill effects. The subject is provided cues during the test as techniques falters away from accepted position. Test terminates when 2 consecutive corrective cues given to the subject do not result in correction in form. The sit and reach test determines hamstring flexibility. I'm going to place the sit and reach box against the wall, have the subject warm up for about 10 minutes. Then I'll have the subject remove their shoes and sit on the floor with their heels and soles of feet against the index line, which is the 23 centimeter mark. I'm going to have her legs fully extended and the medial sides of the feet about 20 centimeters apart. Then I'm going to place my hands across the subject's knees to ensure full leg extension is maintained. I'm going to instruct the subject to extend the arms with one hand on top of the other and palms facing down. I'll have the subject bend forward and reach with both hands along the measuring scale on top of the sit and reach box. Position should be held for 1 to 2 seconds. If the subject's knees bend or the fingertips become uneven, the test does not count and the process should be repeated. I'll repeat this 3 more times and consider the 4th trial as the maximal stretch.